YouTube, it's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former unified welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Keith one-time Thurman, who will be making his ring return after a 2-year layoff after his last defeat, his only and last defeat to legendary 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer, Manny Pacquiao. That was July of 2019 when he lost to Manny Pacquiao. Since then, we have not seen Keith one-time Thurman in the ring, okay? He had previously lost his WBC, World Boxing Council title outside the ring due to inactivity, and then he lost the World Boxing Association, the WBA, to Manny Pacquiao. Keith Thurman, 29 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 22 wins by way of knockout, 33 years of age, 5'7.5" with a 69-inch arm reach. Keith Thurman will be making his ring return against Mexican star boxer who was the former junior welterweight WBA regular champion and Mario Barrios, who lost that title to 3-division world champion undefeated superstar boxer Gervonta Tank Davis. Mario Barrios is 26 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 17 wins by way of knockout, 26 years of age, 5'10" with a 71-inch arm reach. This fight is scheduled to take place February 5th in Las Vegas, Nevada on pay-per-view, Fox pay-per-view. With that said, Keith Thurman's obviously going to start making his rounds to promote the fight. And obviously, the sport of boxing is instant gratification. Just add water. We can't wait to see what happens next before you even step in the ring with your upcoming fight. So with that said, Keith Thurman, he was asked about the massive, mega, biggest fight in the sport of boxing showdown between two rivals of his now that he hasn't faced yet, an undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO, World Boxing Association's reigning welterweight champion, who is widely considered by many to be #1 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draws, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, Terence Crawford makes up for 50% of the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, with his biggest rival, an undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Errol "The Truth" Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 wins by way of knockout. He is 31 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. With that said, Errol Spence will now be going into a unification bout with Cuban star boxer, who is the WBA, World Boxing Association's super welterweight champion, in Yordenis Ugas. Okay, that looks like it's scheduled to take place in March sometimes. Okay, Errol Spence versus Yordenis Ugas for 3 titles on the line. With that said, Keith Thurman, he was asked about Yordenis Ugas, Errol Spence. Yordenis Ugas, 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9" with a 69-inch arm reach. So he's asked about that showdown in which he believes that Errol Spence will win. He believes Errol Spence will get a stoppage victory over, Yordenis Ugas and hold 3 belts. And so with that said, he was asked about the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, and who would he prefer to fight next if he had the opportunity and the choice. And he said it's a no-brainer. Okay, he said that Errol Spence is the 2nd biggest star in the sport of boxing. And after he gets this 3rd title, he's just going to be that much bigger, and that's the bigger fight. He said that Terence Crawford is very skilled. He's a very good to great fighter. But he says, myself, obviously, in, putting himself in the equation, he said, myself versus Terence Crawford is a huge fight, but myself versus Errol Spence is a massive fight, okay? And he believes that Errol Spence deserves a 60-40 split if he was to face off against Terence Crawford in the negotiations, okay? So we know Errol Spence, he has been trying to track down Keith Thurman for quite some time after he beat former IBF welterweight world champion, British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook for his first world title opportunity, and he stopped Kell Brook in the fight. He wanted to unify the belts against Keith Thurman. Everybody had their eyes on Keith Thurman at one point in time. Once Keith Thurman started winning titles and unifying the titles and, beating big name fighters, he was the guy right under, the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao era. Okay. It was Keith Thurman that took over the reins. Okay. And so right after that Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao era, Keith Thurman was the guy to beat. Okay. Keith Thurman was the man that was taking over the welterweight division. And that's exactly what Keith Thurman did. Okay. He started collecting the belts. He was nicknamed one-time Thurman. He was calling out Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. He was the guy, okay? He was the guy to beat. He was the guy that had next, okay? So he won his he won his WBA title. Then he unified the belts with Danny Swift Garcia, 2-division world champion, Puerto Rican superstar boxer. He beat Robert Guerrero, Leonard Bundle, Julio Diaz, Jesus Soto Caras, Sean Porter, Luis Carrazzo, and he was on his way, Danny Garcia. But then inactivity kicked in with Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman started sitting on the shelf, having these long layoffs. After he defeated Danny Garcia in the unification in March of 2017, he went on a 2-year hiatus. He came back in 2019. He fought Josito Lopez in January. He was, showing some signs of exposure, right? He was revealed in that fight, right? He looked vulnerable in the fight. He looked like he was on the verge of getting stopped by Josito Lopez. Now, he weathered the storm and he got a majority decision victory over Josito Lopez. And then in July, he fought Manny Pacquiao, and he lost a split decision to Manny Pacquiao. He was dropped in the first round, badly hurt in the 10th round, looked like he was going to get stopped, spit out his mouthpiece, had to run around the ring to survive that round. But nonetheless, he still was very effective. It was a split decision victory, even though Manny Pacquiao badly hurt him in the 10th round and dropped him in the first round. He still only got a split decision. So that's a testament to Keith Thurman's talent, his skill set, and what he brings to the ring. So Keith Thurman was the guy. So Terence Crawford, when he was making his way, obviously we know Terence Crawford started his career at 130, 135, 140, and 47, okay? He became a champion at 135, 140, and 147, 3-division champion. But he stated that the man to beat was Keith Thurman, okay? He had his eyes on the prize, which was Keith Thurman. To beat a man, you got to beat the man, is what Terence Crawford told Matt Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. He stated that Keith Thurman is the man to beat, not Errol Spence Jr., okay? When they asked him, my eye test says that Errol Spence Jr. is going to be the guy to beat. He said, your eyes are lying to you. They're deceiving you. The man to beat is Keith Thurman, okay? We know when Errol Spence was on the verge of picking up his belts from Kell Brook, he was calling out Keith Thurman. He called out Keith Thurman on telecast. He called out Keith Thurman on social media. He wanted to unify against Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman kept brushing him off, saying that you'll get your chance, young pup. And he told Terence Crawford that you got to get a title, got to get bigger, got to get stronger. You're too small for the division. So Keith Thurman was sweeping these fights with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence under the rug. And with that said, he's always been the man to beat. So Keith Thurman, he's stating that myself versus Terence Crawford is a big fight, but myself versus Errol Spence is an even bigger fight. So he stated that Errol Spence is the man to beat, especially once he beats your Danish Ugas, because Keith Thurman is, highly convinced that Errol Spence is going to win that fight. But he stated that, he would love to face off against Terence Crawford. But in a fight, he's picking Errol Spence to beat Terence Crawford. He said that Errol Spence is just too big, too strong, too skilled for Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is simply too small. So Keith Thurman still don't believe that Terence Crawford is grown into the welterweight division. And as of late, Terence Crawford, he took to social media. He said that these guys should have got me when I was first coming in the division. Now I've grown into the division, okay? So he's admitted that he felt he wasn't a full welterweight at one point in time himself, but now he feels like he's adapted, he's grown into the division, and he feels like, Terence Crawford, who's gotten knockouts his last 9 fights, he feels like he is the man to beat now, obviously, in the welterweight division. Obviously, they're all very confident. But when it comes down to Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, the holdup between the two has always been negotiations. Errol Spence has done the bigger pay-per-view numbers. Errol Spence, he stated that the proof is in the pudding. The numbers don't lie. You look at my pay-per-view numbers to his pay-per-view numbers. You look at my stadiums that I'm selling out. They're bigger than the stadiums he sells out. I'm just simply a bigger star. I deserve 60-40 split in my favor, okay? And then Errol Spence, he started to get frustrated with the fact that Terence Crawford was stating that 60-40 in his favor or 50-50, okay, because of all my past accomplishments. But he hasn't accomplished that at the welterweight division. And Errol Spence, he stated that he's going to have to take the 60-40 or whatever we choose to give him from this point moving forward. So with that said, it's ironic because Showtime's Sean Porter, he uttered the same sentiments. He said that Errol Spence, he fought both Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Now, Terence Crawford, he stopped Sean Porter in the 10th round. His father, trainer, and manager, Kenny Porter, saw enough, waved the white towel in the 10th round, but he dropped him twice in the round. But Sean Porter, he even stated that he thought that Errol Spence was the bigger puncher, bigger, just stronger, more physical than Terence Crawford. He said Terence Crawford is very crafty, very skilled, very extremely long arms. He's like octopus in there. He said he throws punches from angles. He's a Rubik's Cube that you have to figure out. So that's with, the difference between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is from where Sean Porter's standpoint, and he fought both guys. Okay, Keith Thurman saying the same thing. Errol Spence is just bigger, stronger, more technically sound, more skilled, and he would beat Terence Crawford as well. And as star power goes, Keith Thurman, he stated that Errol Spence is just the biggest star, point blank and period, and he deserved the 60-40. Then Keith Thurman, he went into why he could have fought Terence Crawford in 2021. He stated, but Bob Arum, legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter, was lowballing him from the very beginning. They had contact. He said that he was simply not engaged in trying to make the best fights for Terence Crawford. And Keith Thurman, he stated that I would refuse to be lowballed in the negotiations with Bob Arum. He said, I didn't know Bob Arum. I hadn't talked to Bob Arum before we even started to discuss the fact that I wanted to fight Terence Crawford. So Keith Thurman saying I wanted to fight Terence Crawford in 2021. And it's a fight that could have happened, but Bob Arum simply was not in the business of putting up big money. He said he was being cheap. He was lowballing right out the gate. He said, and we couldn't get past the fact that he wasn't even attempting to negotiate in a realistic manner. So that's the reason why Terence Crawford just simply, all of these big lucrative fights have been eluding him for the duration of his career up until today's time, now that he's parted ways with top-ranked ESPN and Bob Arum, okay? And Terence Crawford, he's on record stating that he knows these big fights could have happened if he wasn't with Bob Arum, okay? So we know that Terence Crawford is well aware that the reason he hasn't gotten and secured these big fights is because of Bob Arum. And now Terence Crawford, he wants to put himself in a position where he believes that his worth and his value is the same as Errol Spence's, when it's simply not that, as Keith Thurman is putting it. Keith Thurman said he's on Errol Spence's right behind 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Saul Canelo Alvarez, who's the undisputed super middleweight champion. He said, once Errol Spence gets the third belt, it's over. He's definitely the biggest star in the sport of boxing, and he deserves a 60-40 split when it comes to Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Even though Keith Thurman believes that he deserves the biggest split when it comes to himself. He said, I don't have a belt. All I'm bringing to the table is my name and my talent. And he's just the biggest star, but that's the bigger fight, me versus Errol Spence. And Keith Thurman, he stated that he still wants to fight Terence Crawford. If he got to fight Terence Crawford to get to Errol Spence, then he's more than willing to make that fight happen. So let's see how this all plays out moving forward. Obviously, Keith Thurman got to get past Mario Barrios. Terence Crawford is going to be sitting on the shelf because who is Terence Crawford going to fight? Everybody's tied up. Errol Spence is going to fight Yordenis Ugas in March. So let's see how everything unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
This is Amanda, the Real Deal Serrano, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.